for Monday's Lunch and Learn. We don't have any pre-submitted questions, I don't think. Do we, Caitlin? Take that as a no. I think you came off mute for a second.
Yeah, no, we don't have any today. Sorry. I can hear.
Wait, I'm so. What?
No questions.
Sorry, your audio's a bit screwy today.
Sorry.
Okay, so as always, for those of you that are here, if you just want to use raise hand, pop a question in the chat or pop a question in the Q&A section. I will be here to at least attempt to answer it. Hey, Manal, go ahead. Looks like you were first.
Hello.
You're very far away. It's hard for me to hear you. Can you there?
Is it better?
There we go. Yep.
Awesome. Sorry about that.
What you got?
So I have a flow where I have the process. I think I talked about the process folder. I have set it up in the starting, but whenever I even open the form and I go to my dashboard, it shows the request has started. Is there any way I can take that away? Because I try to place the process folder in different places, but I still even if I just open the form and close it, it still gives me that started in the process folder on my dashboard.
Oh, like in the expected state list?
Yes, so on the state, so I have some of them awaiting approval, but then as soon as I open it, it just says started on the state list, yes.
It's a good question. Let's see here. So we got a flow with a process folder. Form. Simple form, the top one, that's why. For setup, put a set of process folder step here. We'll configure that. Let me copy this. It's assigned to administrators. With some garbage text for assignment name and assignment action name. That. If I run this and submit this, process folder, which I can click into, and now I have started as my first state. You want to get rid of this, correct?
Yes, so it just doesn't show up and doesn't populate my dashboard if in case somebody just open it and close it. I don't even submit or I don't even click anything. It's just you open it and close it and it still shows up.
Oh, that likely means that your set of process folder step is in the wrong. I can get this to occur if I use this. So this could be a design where I have my in session form. Let me name this. This is my in session, right? And this is my assigned form. But with this pattern, if I run it this way, and run this flow, I'm gonna go ahead and get a process folder automatically. And so what you want is likely to make sure that that your in session form occurs prior to your setup process folder. Otherwise, you're going to generate a process folder every time you run that flow, which is what you don't want. You want a user to be able to cancel. Like maybe on this form, we have like a cancel outcome path. and you want to ensure that you don't actually create any data on the cancel. And so the cancel might go to the end step or do something else.
That's how I have it set it up because I have like multiple forms and I have right after the first form and then all the other forms are right after with the in session forms.
But you get a process folder even if you cancel the first form.
Yes, even if I cancel, well, actually, yeah, like if I close it and I refresh it, it still shows up.
Does your cancel path go to, you want to share, you want to share your screen?
Sure. If you can, I don't have the option yet. Awesome, thank you.
Whenever you're ready, go ahead and get a screen share going. Okay. And you might be muted right now still, or remuted.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, there we go.
Awesome. So I have it set it up right here.
Okay.
And then whenever I debug it, and
Mhm.
all the other forms are sessioned later. So just like debugging it, it gives me this.
That is, what is this? What is this report type?
So this is for the, whenever I run this flow.
Mm-hmm.
And then, for example, I can just run this, which runs that flow. I'll do credit card change request. I'll do next. And then I close it. But if I go to the bottom, I don't know which, it probably is this one because they're not in timely manner, but it just gives me this request. Like here, I think it's this one because I haven't done the credit card change. Is there any way I can like take these off? And it just does.
If you're doing this, there's a save step somewhere. You've got a couple of subflows prior to that form and that flow you were just showing. Go back to your flow. Like there's got to be, we don't save any of this data for you automatically. So there's a save step you're not accounting for here.
Oh, these mapping steps?
No, that form you were showing was the general info form.
Yes, this is the one that is the first form that the user sees, where they pick up the form that they want to go to. And then whichever form they choose, then it says the process folder. So if they choose purchase, it goes to purchase, and then the same rule applies to everything.
So you submitted the general info form in the sample you just did, right?
Yes, I go next with it.
Okay, so that would set up a process folder. You don't want that though.
No, I don't.
So when do you, in this process, do you want them to actually generate the request folder?
Whenever they hit either a draft, which is this one, or they actually submit the form.
So they're only going to do like one of these, like purchasing or something.
Yes. So they can do either purchase, travel, missing receipt, or the change request. So there's like 4 scenarios.
Okay. And you're using the same process folder for all 4 of these?
Yes, because I did like 4 different, but then it just repeats the request. So I ended up using just one, which is this one. This is the main folder.
Well, I mean, you could just put this, I guess if that's, so this is kind of what the design that I had offered last week, right? You could put the set of process folder on your save for later path. If it needs to be there. I was assuming in that design I was offering that them submitting general info meant your process was starting.
Yes, I did that, but then I wasn't able to map all other fields into it. So whenever I do it, like for example, I put it in here, it doesn't give me the other forms because all of them have like different save for later paths. Actually, it might have gives me all of them. Oh, it wasn't working before then. It works now. So like, I think I was getting an error where I wasn't able to map all the values.
Like you're
Okay.
missing input data?
Yes, but I guess it's working now though, because I can see all of them. Okay. Gotcha. But like, for example, if I put it in here for the save for later, then I don't have to put it in the submit path, which is all these.
Or you would already have it, correct? Yeah, you might need to update the actual data, but you don't need a second one technically.
Okay, gotcha. So just one have like you showed me in the example, and like just have one process folder for just one save for later, and that would kind of work for all of them.
Well, no, I mean, but like here, like on the screen, you have purchasing. So your user can either go to purchasing or they can go to travel, right?
Yes.
I'd recommend to keep this a little cleaner. I'd probably put travel, purchasing, and the other two options into subflows, so that
Okay.
this parent flow reads a little easier, because this gets quite busy. And then
Yes.
have use like a string match step instead of these rule steps to branch off of the selection from the first form, because then you could just have it go. You could have one step with 4 outcome paths go to one of 4 subflows, and then have those subflows come back in. That's going to read a lot easier, I think, than the design that you have today. I can show you what I mean by that in a minute. But
Gotcha.
in that case, you'd have the same set of process folder step. It would have to be in each of the 4 subflows, but you would only ever hit it. You only ever hit it once. Like, you have to. The flow has to hit the set of process folder step to actually call it, right?
Yes. And that's why I did it like in the beginning, because it was working fine. It's just like it always does that started thing. Like everything else works fine for it. It does a rating approval. It does submit it correctly. It's just that it gives me this started request here. But I'll try to do it exactly like the way you showed me with the entity, save entity step. Because I tried to do that, it was happening like I was getting the input values wrong. But I'll try to do it again.
Yeah. Would you like? Maybe I could show you. Let me push you back as a panelist. Let me offer an alternative.
Awesome.
Maybe a bit more of a clean pattern here. Just a moment here. Okay, so probably what I would do is, let me use my flow I was already working on here. So you've got this like confirmation form here. So I'm going to put a drop down list. I'll make this static. And the items are, I don't know what some of those options were. Well, let me actually like purchase request. Do 2 options here. And then what I would do is something like this. I would, instead of using all those check steps, I would just search for a match and find string match step. Now on this step, you can put in some values. So I could put in purchase request and travel expense, and each of those is going to give me an outcome path. Then what I would do is go put together a quick subflow, and I'd have a subflow for each of my options. So I'll just drag 2 over here. And then here you do something like, this is your actual main form here, right? And this has your done, right? This is your done path. And this is your save for later path. So on this path, you could put on that path, you could do setup process folder. I guess here you'd have to, since you don't want it to complete, and it'd have to be something probably like this. The design would be something like this. And then so you'd come, you could save for later, hit up a process folder, or if you just submit it without saving for later, you could hit up a process folder. And then you could have some actions, you know, I don't know what actions you would have, but I'll just use like a create data step. And you could bring all of these things back together. I'm just going to create a simple empty flow here for this other one. I think you'd find that this, where's my end step? Did I delete my end step? Oops. And then you have something like this where you could have your different paths here as these subflows, and you could just have those be here and then do that logic inside of each of the subflows. This would allow you to actually only set up the process folder. On the save for later or the done path of the second form that you navigate to.
Gotcha. And I have to do that with, for example, if I have 4 scenarios, have 4 subflows, and create like two process folders for each of them. So submit path and then the save for later path.
Yep. And then it
Okay.
should, this is the same step. So if you want to use one, what you could do is you could make it a little bit nicer. So you could always just check is empty. Like on save for later, you could say if the and on is empty, what you could look at is a flow data. If I look at flow data and I look at folder ID, this is probably going to be null because there's no persistent folder yet. And if it's false, you set up a process folder. And if it's not, you could just go back to the step or something like that. You might play around with that because then what you could do the same check. Here. Maybe you've already set up your process folder and you don't want to rerun it. I mean, there's really no harm in rerunning it. It'll act as like a save step. It won't generate a new folder for you.
Gotcha. Just one thing. So each form have an option to go back to the original form. Will I have to get a back? But so each form have the back button to go to the general form where they can choose like which form would you like to fill it out. Will I have to attach like that form to every single subflow again?
So I can go from this form, which is my like travel expense form, back to the select main form.
Yes.
Then yeah, I would just have an outcome path here called like go back or something. Look great. Right. And then what I would do is have in the subflow, you can add a custom end step. I have multiple end steps here. I'll name this thing go back. Suck is on. And then I could have some design rings go back, heads back here.
Perfect.
Gotcha. That'll keep things a little bit cleaner, I think, from the main flows perspective.
Okay. Gotcha. Thank you so much. I didn't know you can have like multiple end steps. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Yep, you bet.
Awesome sauce.
Okay, and Radley, what you got for us today, sir?
Hey there, Will. All right. So I have an optional field on a form that then through an active form flow becomes required, right? I set a validation on it. And what I'm seeing, or at least what I started seeing, is that I can still submit my form with that required field not filled in. And just as I've been playing around here in the last few minutes, I find that if I select run for the submit outcome, that it then fires and stops the form from being submitted. I just want to confirm that I have to select the outcome in order for that validation to stop the form from being submitted. Because it didn't in my testing days or weeks ago, I don't remember having to do that.
Okay, so I'm so sorry. Can you walk me through that scenario again?
I have an optional field on a
Uh-huh.
form. I have it set
Yep.
to optional.
Yep.
And then through other fields being completed, I need to make that field required. So it's a conditionally required field.
Sure.
Right?
Got it.
So in the active form flow, I check and see if field A
Mhm.
is filled in. I now require field B, and I set a validation on
Mhm.
field B.
Right.
I in the active form flow in the setup of that, I haven't been selecting to run on outcome. I've just been running it when A changes, set a validation on field B.
Mhm.
I believe in my earlier testing that was working, and I was seeing that now required field stop the form from being submitted. Right, it throws
Mhm.
error, says you need this one. During my testing this morning, I was seeing that the field, I would see the validation come on the field, right? The field would be highlighted in red,
Mhm.
but the form would still submit. So just as I've been playing around with this, I found
Okay.
that if I set the active form flow to run on outcome, that I get the validation, and that
They run on all outcomes.
on the submit outcome, on the one where I move the workflow forward.
Okay.
I'm just
I think they-
wondering, is that
okay.
a new thing? Is that the expected behavior?
No. Yeah,
Was
let
I
me get
missing
that.
something previously?
That sounds like it's expected, but really quick, let's just check here. Okay, so I'm going to put a text box here. Build an active form flow. On this, I'm going to look at form rules, and I'm just going to set, no, clear validations. Is it set validations?
That's what I've been using.
Multiple? So set validations, select my text box as my form control, which is text box here. Validation issues, build array. I'm gonna build data, break level, fatal, message. Okay, and then run. Run at stop, run at startup, run on all outcomes, run for outcome, neither which I'm going to select. You're saying that before, if neither one of these was checked, you think that this would run?
Yes.
Now.
Well, no, I mean mine is right. I have if A is populated, B is required. If A is not populated, I don't care about B.
Okay, so I'll just get that with a checkbox here. And I will edit my flow now. And I'll find a true rule, true false rule. And if the value is true, I'll run this. If the value is false, I will not run it. True value will be form data checkbox value. Okay, and I'm going to do it on, not run at startup. Save this, debug this. Okay, so debug. Oh, I should be able to run this. Okay, so that ran. Oh, you know what? I actually think that that's set to required, right? This is not required. This is optional. Okay, so I can submit this. That's fine. Didn't run my thing. Run again. Checkbox. Run. Can't do this, but I still can submit the form.
Okay.
Any major version changes or any changes in version between your last test and your current test?
I went from 8 to 8.3.
Went to or from?
From 8.0 to 8.3.
I think this is I think it seems odd, but it is. I think this is expected. I'm on 8.4. The question is, when should the thing expect itself to run? So if I look at active form flow, and as soon if I say run for, I could run for all outcomes, or I could run for button. So if I run for button, and I do the same thing, checkbox, that won't let me progress. And if I edit my form and I select, should also work. Likely run for all should be the default setting here. Checkbox, it fails, submit. Well, yeah. I think it does need to be hooked to an outcome path. I couldn't explain why you were getting this before. Maybe it's but I think this is expected behavior here.
So the validation, the set validation step isn't, in air quotes, making it required, right? The form still views it as optional until I select run on one or more outcomes.
Yeah,
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, that does feel a little strange, but like it doesn't know to enforce the validation unless you tell it to do it on all or a outcome.
Okay.
It will still show the validation, which is I'm admitting is not very not the most intuitive thing, but like and I think if we just made that run on all outcomes a default, this would probably be less confusing, that you have to actually, not only do you have to build it and actually specify the control, but you have to say what outcome or run on all outcomes. This should be this should be selected by default.
All right. And just one other quick question on that. I can only go from optional to air quotes required. Once a field is defaulted as required, I can't through an active form flow make it optional. Is that correct?
Well, you could remove the validation on it in your active form flow.
Oh, okay.
Like by clearing it. So like if we look here under form rules, there is a clear validation step. So on this probably, and what I should actually do is on the false path here, I need to clear it if there is one. Apply it if the value is true, clear it if the value is false. So maybe I need to also check to see if it's changed or not. But yeah, you can, by clearing the validation, you can make it optional.
Can we finish that one out here and just?
Yeah, sure.
I thought I tried that as well.
Form data, text box, clear validation.
So then if you then you need to make the text box a required field, right?
Oh, you mean like if I see this here? Yes, you cannot. If you're doing any conditional validation, you have to do optional.
It has to go. Okay.
The flow has to control it's being required or not. Okay. This is a simple setting to say like has to be. Really, the only thing I would use here is require. Like this is very simple, dumb. You have to enter a value. This is could be, or this is let the active form flow control, and this is we are removing.
Right.
If I could read these differently.
So you can only go optional to required. You can't go through a form flow, but you can't make it required and then make it optional through an active form flow.
Well, yeah, but don't even think about it that way. Like you're not actually, the active form flow is not setting it here. It's not moving it up here.
Right.
It's actually completely unrelated.
Okay.
At the end, they behave the same at the end of the day if they're coded up correctly. But this is completely handing off control of the validation, true or falsity, to the flow or to the behavior. And this is just saying, yeah, no matter what, like there's no reason to incur like any overhead at all. This has to be entered. So instead of needing to make you this, you could almost think about this as like a shortcut. Instead of requiring you to build a behavior to do it, you can just make it required. Anything more complicated, any sort of like cross component complexity requires you to build a flow and set it to optional. Okay. And the result could be that it is required.
Yeah, that's where I was going wrong. I was thinking the active form flow was was effectively changing that to required when it said a validation.
Yeah, they're just like alternative ways to do
Yeah.
the same thing.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Will. Appreciate that.
Yep, you bet. What other questions do we have? Anybody got anything for us? All right, we're at 12:33 here. Last call here for questions. No, we'll just call it early today. Okay, all right. Well, thanks everyone for your questions and joining today. I will be back same time tomorrow. And then we've got Eric Wilmerink on Wednesday and Sendell on Thursday. Thanks everyone. Have a great afternoon. Yep, thanks, Caitlin. See you guys.